Good afternoon. This is your live Substack with Latino Victory. And today it is supposed to be a really special day because my guest is someone that has been close to my advocacy, my activism. We have been friends, partners, in this fight for immigrants' rights, civil rights, human rights, minority rights. And she is also a Venezuelan American, a Venezuelan national, a Venezuelan citizen. We are both Venezuelans. Cecilia is one of these perfect picture. And I know she doesn't like me to say this, but she's the perfect picture of what an amazing immigrant should be. She's a gift to this great nation, and she is an amazing fighter, an amazing advocate, and an amazing human being. I'm going to introduce her. She is Cecilia Gonzalez Herrera. She is a voting rights advocate for Latino Justice, PRLDEF. And we are here to talk about what Latino justice does, what is happening in Florida with redistricting, with the Latino vote, and how this changing in the district distribution is affecting the Latino vote in Florida. But before that, and we have to do it, as I said, we are both Venezuelans. Um, what happened yesterday in Venezuela with two different earthquakes back to back, one 7.2, one 7.5, with the difference between one and another of less than 40 seconds. It's undoubtedly the worst natural disaster in Venezuelan history. And we are just starting to know everything that is the numbers, the victims, the missing people, and everything that is happening. We both have family back in Venezuela, and we both have been through so much since yesterday at 6:05 in the afternoon. Um, we talked before we started this live to decide if we should suspend it or postpone it, but we decided that everything is important and somehow it's not a coincidence that two Venezuelans, two immigrants, uh, two fighters for Latino immigrants and minority rights should be here today in the middle of all of this disaster happening back in our home country, but also with everything that is happening in this, our country now. So, Cecilia, welcome. Thank you very much for being here. And for all of you that would like to donate to the Venezuelan American Caucus, especially now with everything that is happening back at home to help us with our fight, our advocacy, and our activism, I'm going to leave the link here in the chat. And after we post this live online in our account, I will also post it with the whole video of our conversation today. Thank you so much for being here, Cecilia.
Thank you, Ale, and thank you to the family of Latino Victory. Like, I always feel welcome here. I continue coming back. And in today's occasion, I think is an issue that we get to talk often, and it's never enough of how urgent it is to address what is going on in Florida in terms of voting rights, what is especially affecting the redistricting to Floridians and Latinos, and what we can do about it. And gracias for the introduction. For those that are not familiar with what Latino Justice does, we have been around for almost 5 decades, being the leading organization for Latino civil rights on a hand-in-hand program that goes litigation along with advocacy, because we understand that the only way that we're going to move forward to create uh, change and progress for our community is that we are able to get them on paper, whether it is through advocacy at the state level and getting laws or bills proposed and then become law, or and then stopping bad laws and litigating them. And that has been the case for language accessibility discrimination at the workplace. And it continues to be the case when many of our families who aim to cast their ballot and have their voice being heard are continue being disenfranchised. So at Latino Justice, we do a handful of work all the way from criminal justice to voting rights. And I have the privilege of working with Latino Justice for the last 3 years in the Southeast, in Florida, in Georgia, now in Virginia, hand in hand with programs that do election protection, making sure that every ballot that is being casted is being counted. But even before we get to the election, how are we ensuring that the elections are the fairness they are? How do we ensure that language doesn't become a barrier at the time of voting? So that has been a little of the work I've been doing at Latino Justice for the last 3 years. And glad to be here to have a conversation about what is next.
Thank you so much for the introduction of the amazing work that you guys do at Latino Justice. So let's get to Florida right away. Florida just went through a major redistricting process. That's national news, and we are in Florida. I am in Florida. You have been in Florida for many years. I know you are not here right now. We miss you, but in plain language, what happened? Who drew these maps? And how are Latino and minority communities being affected on the ground?
So the reality is that Latinos are affected by everyday decisions, whether we understand it or not. The reality is that redistricting itself is a complex subject for many of us that come from other countries. The element may seem foreign, may seem new, and the idea that it's a process that, in theory, is supposed to happen every 10 years to be a true reflection of the growth of our demographic, it's also a tool that politicians tend to use for their benefit. The reality is that when we draw maps and when districts are being created, are with the pure intention of having voters represented in the fairness way. The reality is that in the most recent redistricting in Florida, it was political driven. It was instructions were given from the White House to the governor that a certain amount of seats needed to be redrawn in order for the current government to remain in power. That is the simplest way to explain that. And there's different ways that can be accomplished. A way is packing. So just as the name explains, it's like when you compartment most groups into less groups. So whether it's Latinos represented two of the largest groups in Central Florida, and way to condense them into just one, it reduces their political power and it allows someone else to be elected. Well, even though the Latino population in Central Florida may be growing faster. The same way it could be explained in South Florida with some of the districts in the Tampa Bay area. And this is a case that we have seen all across the nation. We have seen movements in other states. I think that the controversial part how it was done in Florida is that it was not asked to the voters. Like in states like Virginia, these new maps were put in front of the voters, and the voter had a say in whether or not they acknowledge and they support these new maps. In Florida, it was being done in an expedited way in a special session where legislators didn't receive the maps until they were put in front of them. Conveniently happened at the same time that a Supreme Court decision on Kaleo was on the way. So it was all politically being done in order to harm the minority groups the most. The other way that this redistricting can take place is by cracking, which means if all Latinos are concentrated in a solid group, how can we break it so they don't have that much power into these new groups? Very similar to what is happening to Congressman Soto in District 9 in Central Florida. His previous district is now split into 5 parts. And the area where he actually lives is a district that has so much rural Florida that is not being reflected with the other part of the district. So people that are representing are not even similar, and it's hard to fight for a leader that will represent a community that are not cohesive. So that is in the simplest way what redistricting is.
Okay, but then I will ask you, um, because this is pretty technical, and obviously is you make it look uh, more simple that probably is for regular folks out there trying to understand what is this about. But then I think the right question is, what are the real consequences for everyday Latino families in Florida specifically when the lines are drawn actually against them, against these communities, against the Puerto Rican community in Central Florida, against, I mean, what are the real consequences in real lives when these decisions are made, and what is going to happen?
Well, the reality is that communities like the Puerto Rican community and the growing South American community in Central Florida have been communities that have been trying to organize for the last decades. These are communities that have been in the trenches together, have organized, have mobilized, and have helped elect their own leaders from between their community. And when communities like these that have been able to build up community power, political power, are now redraw to diminish that power, can be very discouraging. It can feel that the system is working against us. Like that is the immediate feeling is we have worked so hard to elect the first Puerto Rican to the Florida House, the first Afro Cuban to the Florida House. Like this can in first feel discouraging, and the second reality is that their needs are not going to be addressed. That we're not electing people from between our communities that understand our needs. Like the reality,
And that they're going to defend our needs. They're
they're
going
gonna
to
fight
defend exactly.
for affordable housing, to keep eyes out of our communities, to build safer communities where children or families can thrive. So that is the direct impact. That when we don't have people that understand how we look and or where we're coming from, won't be able to advocate for us on those tables. And we often say that Latinos are not part of the table, we're only in the menu. But we have been able to see some champions at those tables. And this withdrawal redistricting looks like they're taking that chair away. So that is the visual parallel. How does what is the direct impact of it? That we have gained power. We have sent champions to those tables, and they acknowledge it. The people in power are aware that Latinos are a growing population that is gaining political power, and they're afraid. So these are political mechanisms to try to weaken that power.
You are talking about power. So that's, I mean, that's probably our superpower is precisely the power of the vote, the power of making our communities being represented by people that actually understand our needs and who we are and everything that works for our communities. What tools, resources, or actions does Latino Justice offer to help our communities understand these maps, now our rights, and actually show up stronger than ever for the 2026 midterms?
Well, on the legal side, we are going to utilize every potential opportunity that we have. We have partnered with legal organizations in the past in previous cases of redistricting, and it's our intention to do so for this one. One of the good components of creating strong litigation cases is that it creates the precedent, which will make it harder in the coming cycles for unconstitutional redistricting to happen. The Latino Justice has been at the front line defending brown and black communities on first map before, and we're committed to continue doing so. Into the advocacy leg of this conversation, which is what everyday people can do, the biggest one is staying informed. Attending this type of conversation is clue, because even if there is only a handful of us at this conversation today, we all have the responsibilities going out there and telling the people that wasn't able to attend. The same with our Know Your Rights trainings. Every person that we're training has the moral duty of going out there and explaining people that despite this being legal, it is not okay, and that we have one the duty of going out on there and vote, because the only way that we're gonna do counter power is by exercising the tools that we currently have, which is our vote. This, on the other hand, is the more involved we are, the harder for them that is gonna be to get away. So in the special session that we had in Tallahassee, community organizations from all across Florida mobilized thousands of residents in Florida just to go to Tallahassee and talk directly to power and say, I do not approve this map. This map is now being reflected of our communities. And even though 2 or 3 minutes of public speaking with a rep may seem insignificant, it has a power because it's public record, it's being recorded, and they are feeling the pressure. And the other reality is that those drawing the map are also up to the ballot in the next election. So we need to keep them accountable. The reality is that they do not work for the governor and they do not work for the guy at the White House. They work for the constituents back at home. And they need to hear from our constituents back home, whether it's sending an email, whether it's making a call, whether it's at the ballot. And this is very important for those that are not US citizens just yet. Those state reps represent you as well, because you are a taxpayer in their district and you are entitled to be heard. So you can email them, because you will be subject to whatever new district is being drawn, what the new school board you will be represented by, who is going to be your new member of Congress. So every single member of our community have a different role in this machine.
You work on the ground here in Florida, and I would like to know what gives you hope, because the reality is that Florida keeps getting written off, or written in as a done deal, and I think it is important to leave a message here of, I know what gives me hope, but I want to hear what gives you hope. Where do you see the Latino vote as a real game changer in this state, down the road eventually, and what do we have to build uh, uh, together in order to get to that point?
I think that what gives me hope in Florida are Floridians themselves. As we have mentioned, I spent nearly a decade in Central Florida. My family is still there and really invested in the future of Florida. As some of my best friends are there. And these are people who are every day still advocating and fighting for a better Florida. A Florida that is truly reflective of every single person that makes Florida what it is. The reality is that Florida is way more complex than what we would like to. It has so many layers, it has a history, and it has an evolving reality. The Florida of 2008 is not the Florida of 2016, and it's certainly not the Florida of 2026. I'm very hopeful in the leaders that we are uh, nurturing right now in Florida. At the local level, we see new people step into the fight. We see some of those candidates being endorsed by Latino Victory, and we see all those organizers who those that doesn't stay with the narrative of Florida is too hard or Florida is too expensive or it's not worth investing on, because the reality is that there's over millions of Floridians who wake up every day who cannot give up on the state, that their rent is just getting unaffordable, that their health care is getting harder and harder to access. And we have thousands of children who go to school that don't know if they're going to come back home either safe or to their whole families. So those are the Floridians that we still deserve to deliver back. Those are the ones that keep me going, that still make me believe that institutions are bigger than what we think they are. Sometimes they may seem fragile, sometimes they may seem unstable, but along with litigation, it has been proven that despite the fight being up climb, the legal system in this country is still honorable. It is still a proof that no one stands above the law, and I believe in that. I believe that every Floridian, despite of where they come from, their sexual orientation, or how much money do they make, they all deserve to live with dignity, and that is the Florida that I'm committing that my parents live in, and that's the Florida that I'm hoping to come back to help fighting for because Florida has been home for many of us, has given us so many opportunities, and it should continue shining for what it is.
So that takes me to uh, the big question of this conversation, probably. What is the long game? Uh, how do we get to a better, improved voting system? And and also how can we get people to get to the polls and understand that they need to raise their voices, voting and expressing themselves to make things happen and to protect our system, our democracy, our freedoms, and our liberties.
For sure, I think we all should be focused on the immediate goals and in the long term game. The reality is that it took us decades to get to where we are. The path of the Voting Rights Act in 1965, sometimes it feels like it was yesterday, sometimes it felt like it was centuries ago. And the idea that it could be a snap away from us in a second is very real. The reality is that many of the protections that we fought for years could be taken away if we are not actively defending them. And that takes hard work, pressuring and keeping our elected officials accountable. It takes marches. It takes putting many of our bodies on the line. Uh, and the reality is that the fight for a better system, whatever we think the better system may be, will not happen from night to the morning. It will happen over the years. I think there is a few elements that we need before. I think we need to be able to to get our community to gain trust again. The reality is that the trust has been uh, this vain more election after election. People feel discouraged. A lot of false narrative and like misinformation have been spread, which have been proven to be effective, especially in our community. They do not trust the vote by mail system, which is proven to be one of the most secure ways to vote. People tend to believe this narrative that n- undocumented people are voting, which is not true. Non-eligible voters have been casting their ballots. So there is a part that we need to work with our people to gain the trust back, and along hand in hand, continue exercising our right to vote. The work to organize doesn't start in the next election. It started yesterday, and it does never end. And when I say that it doesn't never end, it's not because there's always an election. It's because our community continue evolving. Our community continue changing. The needs of our community continue changing, and we see it. We see it all across the nation. How the way that the people were represented and the people they were electing for decades now it's shifting, not because they were bad, but because people are feeling ready for their new needs to be addressed by new ways. The reality is that we are nearly a nation of 250 years. We do have a quote unquote new democracy. It's fairly young, and we are able to question whether this is a democracy that is serving us the best. We need to question whether the electoral college system is what it works the best for people. And Latino Justice, along with the George Washington University, have been putting together conversations with stakeholders, lawmakers, and law experts on what redefining democracy means, like re-envisioning what a true multi-racial democracy would look like. And we have seen in different tests, whether that is ranked choice voting that we have been testing around in other smaller municipalities, whether that means non-citizen voting at the local elections because they're also being impacted by who their mayor are. So this multiracial democracy will look different than what we have right now, but certainly the goal is having a new democracy that will be a stronger reflection of what the people is serving look like.
What we are already as a country and what we will be as a country in the months, years, and decades ahead. So, Ceci, thank you so much for being here today. I am going to let you have the final word and a final message for our audience. I know, again, I'm going to say it again, we have been living personally as Venezuelans very, very hard the last 12 hours have been horrendous for us. But we believe that fighting the good fight is something that we have to keep doing no matter what. And that's the reason we are here today. So I'm going to leave you with the last word. And thank you so much for your work. Thank you so much for the work that the organization, your organization, does. And thank you for not giving up on the Latino community, on our representation, on our voting rights, and on this information campaign that you are uh, uh, fighting for every single day.
Thank you, Ade. I think to wrap up, it's something that I mention often. As a Latina immigrant myself, coming from Venezuela, I have witnessed firsthand the impact that policy have on people, the impact that everyday decisions that are being taken on the halls of Congress and the halls of power, kind of away from where our communities are, they have direct impact on our people. And we, Venezuelans and many other Latinos that have had to flee their country for different reasons, understand that the lack of accountability from our elected officials have direct impact on people's lives. And the migrant community is a result of poor policy. It's a result of a mixture of other elements. And it would be devastating to see her new home also goes through something nearly similar to what we have witnessed before. So, as an voting rights advocate, I have always tell people that everything that our champions or civil rights leaders that the people before us have built, that have gained us rights and have gained us power now, can be taken away if we allow the wrong people to stay in power for too long. And the only way that we can prevent that is by organizing, is by mobilizing, and is by casting our votes. So there is a primary coming in August, there is a general in November, and there is an election for municipalities the year after, and there's another election in 2 years. So organizing never stops. We need to be ready for when our next elections come by.
Thank you so much. And we are ready. We are ready to mobilize people. We are ready to fight every single day. And Florida is not a lost cause. And I want to give you with this message. Thank you so much, Ceci. And hopefully we'll see each other soon. And we will talk in social media again really soon. Thank you so, so much. And thank you
Gracias.
all. Bye bye. Gracias.